Welcome back. Tell your own true scary story. My name is Alex, a freelance photographer with a penchant for the forgotten. Abandoned places have always fascinated me, their silence speaking volumes about the lives once lived there. But the old Whitmore Factory, it was different. It wasn't just silent, it was hauntingly so. The Whitmore Factory was once the heart of our small town, a beacon of industry and prosperity. But that was before the incident. One day, in the sweltering summer of '78, an unexplained malfunction caused a catastrophic accident. Several workers lost their lives and the factory was abruptly shut down. The incident was shrouded in mystery, the cause never fully explained, and the factory has been deserted ever since. As a child, I would listen to my grandfather's stories about the factory. He was a foreman there, a proud man who loved his job. But after the incident, he became a shell of his former self, haunted by the memories of that fateful day. His stories, filled with nostalgia and regret, sparked my interest in the factory. I decided to explore the factory, hoping to capture its eerie beauty with my camera. As I stepped inside, I was struck by the silence. It was as if the entire world had stopped, the only sound being the creaking of the old, rusted machinery. As I moved deeper into the factory, I couldn't shake off a growing sense of unease. It felt like I was being watched, like I wasn't alone. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to the general creepiness of being in an abandoned factory. I spent hours exploring the factory, capturing its haunting beauty. But as the day turned into night, the factory took on a more sinister feel. The shadows seemed to grow longer, the silence more oppressive. Suddenly, I heard a sound, a soft metallic clink like a piece of machinery moving. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The factory was deserted, the machinery old and rusted. It couldn't have moved on its own. I followed the sound, my camera recording every moment. It led me to the old assembly line, a long rusted conveyor belt surrounded by machinery. As I approached, I saw something that made my blood run cold. One of the machines was moving. A single rusted arm, lifting up and down in a slow, steady rhythm. I watched in disbelief, my mind racing to find a logical explanation. But before I could, the machine suddenly stopped, the factory falling into silence once again. Just as I was about to leave, a sudden loud crash echoed through the factory. I turned around to see a heavy piece of machinery had fallen right where I was standing just moments ago, if I hadn't moved. I left the factory soon after, my mind filled with questions. I reviewed the footage, trying to make sense of what I had seen. But no matter how I looked at it, it didn't make sense. The story of the Whitmore factory spread, the video becoming a viral sensation. People were fascinated, coming up with their own theories about what had happened. But no one knew the truth, the unsettling reality of what I had experienced. To this day, I can still hear the sound of the machinery, a chilling reminder of the night at the Whitmore factory. A reminder that some places are best left forgotten, their secrets too unsettling to be unearthed. I was the operations manager at the old Henderson Factory, a sprawling complex that had been manufacturing high-end automotive parts for decades. The factory was a labyrinth of assembly lines, storage rooms, and workshops, each filled with the constant hum of machinery and the hustle of workers. My job was to ensure the smooth operation of the factory, to keep the machines running and the workers productive. It was a routine job, a dance of order and efficiency that I had mastered over the years. But beneath the routine, there was a sense of unease, a feeling that something was amiss. You see, I had noticed a discrepancy in our inventory. High-end parts were missing, their absence unaccounted for. It was a minor inconvenience, yet it was a glitch in the system that tugged at the back of my mind. No answer could be found. The other management and I confronted workers. We tried to run the numbers over and over meticulously, but every time it always came back to a mysterious, unexplained disappearance. One night, as I was working late, I had asked one of the workers, a young woman named Lisa, to meet me after her shift. Her productivity had been slipping, and I wanted to discuss it with her. It was an unusual occurrence, as I would normally have left by then. The factory floor was quiet, except for the hum of the machines. We were alone, the only human presence in a world of steel and machinery. Our conversation was interrupted by a soft rustling sound, coming from one of the machines. Me and Lisa both went silent, as we knew there should be nobody here but us. Maybe there was a ghost that haunted the place. I remember thinking, looking back, it would have been the lesser of two evils. I approached the machine, only to see a figure darting away, disappearing into the darkness. A scream echoed through the factory. Lisa's voice filled with fear. The figure was a man, ragged and gaunt, his eyes filled with a wild, desperate fear. He was a thief, caught in the act of stealing the high-end parts. I tried to apprehend him, but he was quick, his movements desperate. He darted towards a back door, a little-known exit that was rarely used. Before I could reach him, he had disappeared into the night. The encounter left me shaken. The factory, once a place of routine and order, now felt ominous. The machines hummed and whirred, their rhythm now a reminder of the thief who had been there, lurking in the shadows. I alerted the security team, and we launched an investigation. The thief had left behind a trail of clues, a dropped tool, a discarded bag, a footprint in the dust, but the most chilling discovery was yet to come. A few days later, as I was inspecting one of the machines, I discovered a small compartment. It was a makeshift living space, barely big enough for a person. Hidden inside the machine, it was a perfect hideout, a place to stay unnoticed. The realization sent a chill down my spine. The thief had been living inside the factory, hiding among the machines. Unseen and unnoticed, he had been there all along, watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. The thought of someone living in the factory, watching my every move without me knowing, was deeply unsettling. The factory, once a place of routine, had become a place of fear, a place where shadows moved and whispers echoed. The security measures were tightened, the workers more cautious. The machines hummed and whirred, their rhythm uninterrupted. But beneath the routine, there was a sense of unease, a fear of the unseen, of the unknown. I was fresh out of college when I landed a job at the old Thompson Factory on the edge of town. The factory had been around for decades, manufacturing everything from car parts to household appliances. It was a sprawling complex of buildings, machinery, and conveyor belts, all overseen by a towering brick chimney that belched out white smoke during the day. I was hired as a quality control inspector, a job that required me to work the night shift. My job was simple: inspect the products, ensure they met the company's standards, and report any issues to the morning shift. The factory was eerily quiet at night, the only sounds being the hum of the machinery and the occasional clanging of metal. One night, as I was making my rounds, I heard a strange sound. It was a low, rhythmic thumping, like something heavy being dropped repeatedly. I followed the sound, which led me to the old storage building at the back of the factory complex. Inside, I found rows upon rows of old machinery parts, tools, and crates. The thumping was louder here, and it seemed to be coming from the far end of the building. I walked towards the sound, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. As I neared the source of the sound, I noticed something odd. One of the old machines, a large metal press that had been out of service for years, was operating on its own. Its large metal plate was slamming down with a loud thump, then rising, only to slam down again. I approached the machine, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew for a fact that this machine hadn't been used in years. The power switch was in the off position, and the power cord was unplugged. Yet the machine continued its rhythmic thumping, oblivious to my presence. I reported the incident to my supervisor the next morning. He looked puzzled and told me that the machine had been disconnected after a tragic accident years ago. It wasn't supposed to operate. Over the next few weeks, other strange occurrences began to unfold. I would hear whispers coming from the assembly line, footsteps echoing in the deserted corridors, and sometimes I would see figures moving in the corner of my eye, only to disappear when I turned to look. One night, as I was inspecting the products on the conveyor belt, I felt a sudden chill. I turned around and saw a figure standing at the end of the assembly line. It was a man, dressed in an old factory uniform, his face obscured by a worker's helmet. I called out to him, but he didn't respond. He just stood there, watching me. Then, without warning, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. I followed him, my heart pounding in my chest. He led me to the old storage building, to the metal press. As I entered the building, I saw him standing in front of the machine. He turned towards me, then disappeared, his figure fading away like smoke. I stood there, frozen in shock. Then I noticed something. The machine had stopped. The rhythmic thumping was gone, replaced by a deafening silence. Suddenly, the machine roared back to life, its metal plate slamming down with a force that made the ground shake. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. The machine continued to operate, its rhythmic thumping echoing through the factory complex. But this time, it was different. Each thump was followed by a chilling echo, a sound that was eerily similar to a human scream. I ran out of the building, the chilling echoes following me. I reported the incident to my supervisor the next morning. I told him about the figure, about the machine, about the chilling echoes. He looked at me, his face pale, then turned to the security footage from the previous night. We watched as I entered the storage building, as I stood in front of the machine, as I stumbled back and ran out. But the figure, the man I had followed, was not there. I was alone in the footage. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been following a ghost, a remnant of the factory's tragic past. I quit my job the next day, but even now, I can still hear the rhythmic thumping of the machine, still hear the chilling echoes of the screams. The memory lingers, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurk in the darkness.